So you can just say your name. So.
My name is Ralph Thomas, and I'll be 66 years old on the 21st of October. And I'm living in Largo, Florida for 2.5 years, an ex-New Yorker. And I'm so happy to be here in Largo because it's an entirely new life. It's a different world here completely.
Mm-hmm.
And best of all, I found the Lord since I moved here.
Very good.
A year and a half ago, the Lord came into my life. Well, actually, it's going to be a 2-year anniversary, October the 9th. And I have to say that being a Christian and a member of a church, I never ever thought that would happen to me. I was always a person who, living in New York City, I didn't have time for God.
Yeah.
New York goes 24 hours a day, and they say it's the city that never sleeps. Well, it never sleeps because of the noise.
Yeah.
The noise is 24 hours a day. But God is so important in my life now, because when I do look back in the past, even though I chose to ignore Him, He watched over me my entire life. I've been in auto accidents. I served in Vietnam. I was taken out of a hot spot before it really got to be a hot spot. And I can't help but realize that the Lord was there for me, and because of His love, I was in the right place at the right time to be taken somewhere else.
That's really interesting.
I had an instance of changing my night of guard duty with somebody by one night, saying that, okay, I'll go a night earlier and you take it the next night. And while I was on guard duty, on the beach, I could look up on a high bluff where our camp was, and at about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, it was bombarded with rockets, and we could see all the flames and the smoke and everything. And when I got off guard duty at 6 in the morning and we were driven back to the camp, I was told that the very first rockets came in and hit right over where I would have been sleeping.
Wow.
So the Lord has
That's
been with
amazing.
me, and I'm just so amazed that I could come from where I was to where I am and where I'm going.
It's very exciting.
It's just such a change in my life, and I praise the Lord.
Good. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about your time in Vietnam. How old were you when you served?
I went over there at 24, which was a little bit late. I started working right after high school for a major bank in New York City. And believe it or not, the higher-ups in that bank sent letters to the draft board saying that my job was essential to the economy. And I got called several times by the draft people, and yet I was deferred because of my job. But eventually they caught up to me at age 24. And what I was amazed, especially during basic training, is we had so many people in the group. We had a 40-year-old.
Wow.
And unfortunately, he was there because it was either go to jail or go to the Army. And that's why he was there.
So you were drafted into
I was drafted, yes, Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and then Fort Polk, Louisiana for training. And it was excellent training.
Yeah.
And being a city boy, being out in the woods and going for hikes, I found it extremely exhilarating, especially the hikes. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed that. I never experienced that before. Sleeping out in the freezing cold weather, I can hear our supply sergeant now saying, "Don't bother taking blankets, you won't need them." I would say even today, he's the one person I'd like to get my hands around his neck. When I think of how cold it was sleeping out in the pup tents in the Kisatchie National Forest in Louisiana in November, I think I was there.
Now, through this whole time, were you sleeping in tents, or did the living conditions change?
No, we were living in regular buildings. It's just that towards the end of your training, you spend an entire week out in the field,
Okay.
and you live in tents. And it happened to be either very late October or early November, and it was cold at night. It was cold at night.
What about during the war? Where did you live then?
Basically, I spent my time in a place called Chu Lai,
Mm-hmm.
which is on the seacoast.
Okay.
And I went there at a time that my Army division was just being formed. It was a small base originally, I believe, for Marines and Navy. And then all of a sudden, it was going to be the headquarters area for the 23rd Infantry, the Marical Division. So when we got there, it was quite primitive, but we did have wooden houses. The big difference was the heat and the red earth, the dust and the sand and the earth was very reddish.
Wow.
And when I went through my first monsoon season, was I amazed. It would rain so hard that if you put your arm out like that, you could only see about that far.
Wow.
And then everything else disappeared in this gray wall of water. And it would rain so hard that the earth would not actually change to mud as you know it, but it would be much more like syrup flowing over. If you poured it over a cake or something, the way it flows down, well, that's the way the mud would be over there.
Wow. That's really cool.
Well, it's different.
Yeah, it's cool to hear it. I'm sure not to experience it, but.
And then we had red ants. And the red ants, basically, if you were where the red ants were, you got up and moved. We used to get potato chips and candies in like coffee cans. And they would have like a double plastic, they'd have an aluminum pop top, and they'd also have a plastic top. And those ants would eat right through the plastic top, and you'd pick up a can of